thanks for coming. Thanks for getting involved and helping us spread the awareness of tube feeding for Tube Feeding Awareness Week. So we might just go around and just do a quick introduction of who everyone is. So I'm Stacey. I'm a mum of 3 boys, and my youngest is Callum, who is tube fed, and he's now 5. He's been tube fed since he was 9 weeks old. And through the journey of tube feeding, I've created Tubie Fun to help others in our position. Yeah.
And thank goodness you did.
Yeah.
We're all grateful.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're Sue and Colin.
Okay.
We have 2 Tubie Fun children at the moment. One who's got cerebral palsy, acquired brain damage, problems with his kidneys and liver. He's basically palliative care. He's almost 3, but he's like a 6-month-old baby. Then we have our little girl. She's 7, just turned 7. She's like a 6-month-old baby as well, and she's got a very rare form of epilepsy called CDKL5, and she has up to 100 seizures a day.
So I am Jess. I am from Melbourne and I'm 31 years old. I am a tubie myself. I have had an NG when I was a teenager for anorexia. I now have a PEG, which I have for gastroparesis from Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And before the PEG, I was trialled on an NJ tube. I'm a disability advocate, actress, model. So, yeah, and I have an assistance dog called Riley, who is currently snoozing. And, he's my absolute godsend because I live independently. And as a mobility aid user and everything, it's definitely handy to have an extra set of paws around.
My name is Sarah Thomas. I am mum to identical twins, Lewis and Cohen. When Lewis was 3, he had a major stroke, which resulted in cerebral palsy, epilepsy, and lots of other bits and pieces. He was on and off tube feeding for a few years before getting one permanently inserted back in 2017. So it's almost 5 years now. And he has been the inspiration, I guess, behind me starting my business, Wholesome Blends, which is real food for tube-fed children and adults. And he is 13 now, and for the child they told me would never walk, talk, or eat ever again, he runs around, can't shut him up, and slowly taking a few nibbles, so we're getting there.
Oh. Yeah. Does tube feeding stop you from doing anything?
No.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Even when our kids were on day feeds and stuff, we still treat them like normal, take them out, day activities and stuff. And we've even had an experience where we had to put a child on feed during a shopping centre. And these old biddies were sitting down having their coffee and stuff, and like, how dare you? So I excused myself from Sue and said, I went up to them and sat down with them and said, excuse me, like, do you guys eat when you eat? Hungry and stuff? Do you guys drink when you drink? Why can't she? And had a bit of a chat with them and try to explain to them and educate them that this is how she is.
Just some of the reactions you get. It's just,
yeah.
I love the kids. I love when little kids come and ask questions. That's my favourite thing.
Callum is anything but discreet. He will run around with his shirt up. He will, but he wants everyone to know that he's got a tube, and he's at that independent age now where he's like, I want to do it, Mum. I want to do it. I'm like, okay, I will watch and I will supervise, but he will tell the world.
Like, I think there's a lot of stigma that can be attached to things that are unknown to feeding disability in general. Mm-hmm. As someone who has had tube when I was anorexic, there was a lot of judgment around that and comments just like, why don't you eat? Or just eat. And then as someone who's now overweight, there was that big fear surrounding that. A lot of specialists will look at the weight instead of how someone is living or not living their life. And so it really has given me my life back. Obviously, Melbourne lockdowns has affected how much I can test that theory. But in terms of work and being awake and having energy, I live more now with my tube than I did when I didn't have it. I think a lot of tubies would say that it's given them their life back. It's given them the opportunities that they wouldn't have otherwise had.
Yeah. And what about you, Sarah? Do you find it stops you from doing anything, or?
No, I think almost like the opposite. Like you were saying before, you know, the questions that we don't not tube feed any, like we do it everywhere. So I think that the questions that we get sometimes as well, you know, depending on my mood, sometimes whether I want to answer them or not.
Yeah.
It depends on how much of it I need to be really quick. But generally, I'm really interested in educating people about that, you know, and keeping it normal for people. And I kind of liken tube feeding to breastfeeding, you know, and the stigma that is still around. We find around breastfeeding. It doesn't matter how anybody gets fed as long as it goes into them and they're getting the nutrients they need. So, you know, I don't mind the questions. And my son is a little bit like yours, Stacey. He's not shy at all. He'll quite happily you know, show people what he's doing. And, you know, if we've got a water bolus, he'll use that as a water gun, like you wouldn't believe, you know. So start if you walk past. Yeah. But no, it certainly doesn't stop him doing anything. I mean, my son also does jiu-jitsu and boxing, you know. So
Helen does martial arts as well.
Yeah.
It doesn't phase him whatsoever.
I mean, the only thing that I think comes to mind in terms of being affected in a more negative sense from my tube is that mine unfortunately is placed like just right under my breast, and so it's meant that bras, crop tops, all those things, I can't wear them, and I used to wear them 24/7 because I've got really bad joints that struggle. And so that's been something that's affected my pain and my mobility a bit more. On the list to have a double mastectomy because it is at that point.
What are some things that we wish we knew before we started this journey? Like, obviously, one of mine was like trying to find help. Where do you get help? Like, I didn't know anything. I met a lady in hospital whose child was tube fed, and she was my savior. So that was one of my big ones, was didn't know where to get help.
Yeah. Social media has made a good sense. I mean, it was not really a thing back when I was 15. And I think that's always been a really great source of support, especially if you've got something or you're part of a community that is more marginalized. You know, my conditions have been considered rare for some time up until recently. And so that was where you found other people who got it. And so that has been a great source of things. I think as an NDIS participant, that's had its own challenges and complications. For me, one of the really big ones was trying to source a peg nurse because there wasn't a kind of nutritional team as such at the hospital. So I had to try to find someone who could help me with things like granulation or problems like collections that I had after my surgery. I had kind of like pockets deviating from my site and I had to keep an eye on that. And so it got to the point where after GP clinics and talking to my specialist and all of these bring up nothing, that I reached out on my local community page thinking I would get absolutely nowhere with that. And within 2 hours, I was in contact with the most amazing peg nurse who does community nursing, and they've, you know, got a tubie child as well. And it's been amazing. Like they've been a support in so many ways, and without them I'd be completely lost.
Pretty lucky because the Children's Hospital gives us a lot of support and things like that.
I was terrified of moving to a peg. I already had PTSD from my nasogastric insertions as a teenager. And so luckily with an NJ, you know, you're asleep. So that was something at least. But a peg was something that I was saying a hard no to. I said to my specialist straight out, it's not ever going to happen. I was terrified. And part of that was because I had friends and everything who had pedges, and I think I always heard or saw the issues that they were facing with them, heard horror stories, but you don't often see the other side. And I think that's something that we always remind ourselves as an online community, is that if we've got someone on there who is like me and going, they're telling me I have to move to a peg or a peg, I'm scared. And we have to go, well, remember that a lot of the stuff that you see on here is when people are actually struggling, but you don't see when we're all out and about and having success.
What about you, Sarah?
People should not be embarrassed about it.
Mm.
You know, like it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. I've got 10 grandkids and they've all seen the kids' pegs and things like that. And I just think if the public got a little bit more educated on it, and it's not made out to be this horrible, scary thing that they all try and make it out to be, the sooner that happens, the better it's going to be for these kids who have got them.
Yeah.
And teens and young adults, you know. Yeah. I never saw myself represented in the community, in the media, catalogues. And luckily that is now starting to happen, both from a Tubie perspective and from someone who's a mobility aid user. The importance of that, of authentic representation, it's so powerful, because if I'd have just seen that there are other people like me out there, that they were out doing what they loved and having a good time and not hidden away in a corner, I would have felt a hell of a lot more comfortable with myself and with the changes that were happening to me and my body.
I wish I'd known about the community that was out there. I think I had to find that out for myself, and that took a little while to find the right people to be able to get advice from. Yeah. And like the others have said, you know, we kind of learn about how to do this from those Facebook groups or the Tubie community itself, because they're the experts doing it all the time. Yeah. So I kind of probably felt a little bit alone to start with, and not really knowing what to do until I found my group. And then also things like, you know, in our situation, it may not be forever. You know, I think that when I first got told that Lewis was going to have a tube, I thought this was going to be it forever, because that's what I basically got told would happen, and that's not the case for him. And then a really big one for me when they told me Lewis needed to have a tube permanently, was that you know, I didn't want to give him hospital formula. I wanted to give him real food. So you know, we have a lot more awareness around that now, and there's a lot more research about that now, but back then it wasn't something anyone supported me with, so that was stuff that I had to find out myself as well. I asked Anthony, my husband, and said, what's one thing you wish you knew before we started this? His answer was what to put in a bag when we leave the house. Such a man answer. Yes. But it's so true. Like, just
it is.
It's just getting stuck without having any spookles or anything. Biggest mistake I've ever made.
Do you think as well that sometimes that community is the ones to really pump you up and give you that confidence and motivation? Sometimes, you know, we know our doctors tell us what we need to hear, because sometimes they give us the worst case scenario, and sometimes that's the right thing to do. But it takes people living and going through what we're going through to actually realize that there are some rainbows out there, and we're not going to be stuck in a room by ourselves forever, never leaving the house again. So I think getting the right people around you that are going to boost that confidence and give you the confidence to try new things and not be scared to change a button or go out with a bag or not with a bag, you know.
I'm risking it today.
Absolutely. I think that is so valuable.
Have we got any top tips for all of our Tubie community out there. There's people starting out, the people that have been doing it for a long time.
Talk to people, like actually engage and talk to people in our community. Don't just like search and scroll and see what you see and come across, because that isn't the whole picture. Remember that everyone is different and that it can be scary.
We actually imported a doll from Bright Ears in the UK that have actually got the pegs and the tubes and the hearing aids and cochlear and everything. And that's a great educational toy that we've got for the kids and grandkids and everyone else. And
that's awesome.
It's amazing because they see themselves in their bear, they help it have their feed, and then they take it to school and do show and tell, which then teaches a whole class, if not more, about tube feeding, and it just flows on like that.
We're so grateful that we've got these aids now, where 10, 15 years ago, there was nothing really out there on the market.
Things are definitely changing, but they can still get better.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. There's a long way to go.
It's that awareness. It's educating the hospitals as well on what we want, because we live with this. You know, they get to go home, but we live with this 24/7. So it's educating them as well. And our worlds are changing. You know, and for me, I would say a top tip for me, Stacey, is, you know, trust your instinct. And for our situation, my son is able to eat everything. He just can't eat it. So therefore, there's no reason why he can't have real food. So trust your instinct and know, you know, whether you're a tube fed person yourself or it's your child, know what they can have and, you know, and do it.
My biggest tip is just get talking, find your tribe. You know, there's just so many things out there that you don't really know about until you're in the situation, but just don't be scared to talk and put yourself out there. Stand up for yourself, what you believe is right. And
don't be scared to ask questions.
Yeah. And lean on people. Like, it's okay to ask for help. Like, do it. Like, if you're worried, concerned, even if you think it's just a tiny little small niggling matter, just ask people, because I mean, I think I've found out of all the kind of medical disability communities that I'm a part of, the Tubie community is absolutely phenomenal. People will go, I don't have these supplies, I'm stuck, I'm stranded, I don't have a charger, I'm in this area. And there will be a flock of people who just go, here is a whole box of things for you. And so don't be scared to ask for help. And that goes for tubies, but that goes for the parents and the carers as well, because you can't look after your tubies unless you've looked after yourself as well. You're allowed to have a break and take a breath and have a coffee or do what you need to do, because if you fall apart, and I mean, it's completely okay to, I can't even imagine what, you know, my family has been through on that side of things. But, you know, you are allowed to look after you. I'm sure there is natural instinct that the kids come first and all of those things. But as someone who's dealt with mental health issues my whole life, I know that it's good to kind of just be open and have at least a person in your life that you can reach out to no matter the time or what you're dealing with. And just getting it off your chest and getting help is the best thing that you can do, as scary as it may seem.
Yeah. I really find that the people walking the same journey as you can just be 100% honest with them and they just get it. Like, it's a bit different talking to someone who doesn't know what you're going through. Like, I can go to Sarah and just go, blah, and she's like, yeah, cool. Yep, I get that too. And then that's the end of it. Whereas
I went right back at you.
Yeah. And then it gets to a point sometimes when, like, you try and talk to someone who's not really completely in this world and they're like, oh, wow. Oh, I was like, no, I just had to get off the chest. Like, it's okay. Like, this is just what it is. Like, I'm good to go now. Like,
having friends, you know, whether, and I think this goes especially for teens and young adults and adults in general who are tubies or have other things going on, it's been an absolute life changer. I have never felt so supported and loved and able to, say anything about whatever is going on.
What does it mean to you to have a tube? For me, having a tube for Callum really means he's alive. It is the reason he's alive. It's how we feel, like it's how we keep him hydrated. It's how we keep him safe. And like for me, we celebrate it for the gift that it is. Instead of looking at the doom and gloom and, oh my goodness, you've got something in your stomach. To me, this is our lifesaver and this is our godsend. Right. Yeah. And that's what it means for us.
Absolutely.
Tube feeding is our savior.
I'm 100% behind you with that, Stacey. I wish someone had told me 5 years earlier that Lewis had needed a tube, because it saved my son's life, and it probably saved my whole family's life, because the stress, trying to feed a child that couldn't eat, it's hard on everyone. It is hard on everyone. I watched my other son crying at the breakfast table saying, please eat, Lewis, I don't want you to die. So, having that tube, I'm with you. It is our saving grace. It has saved my son's life, and it has made me not stress as much. And I'm a better parent. I can be a better parent to my son because I don't worry about what he's eating.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think if we'd have known just how life-saving a tube could be, no matter what it was for me now, it means that I can live independently, that I am safe at my own home and I don't have to have support workers here 24/7. It means that I can study, I can work, I can be conscious and not look like I'm grey. I am happier and healthier. What that comparison is like, people see it, they see the difference. Having Christmas as, when I had my tube inserted is a really good comparison point. And so this year there were a lot of comments going, my God, you have color. So yeah, it has given me my life back, life that I had missing for probably over a decade at least, without realizing it at points. So I'm grateful for my tube because it is a godsend for me.
We don't have to worry about how much the children are eating or things like that. It is a godsend.
Yeah, it just helps lift that pressure, the stress and the pressure.
It literally is.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for chatting and sharing your experiences, and just chatting about what it's like living with tube feeding.